So I'm going to start this video with a scenario, okay? You are in a narcissistic relationship. Doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is. But the other person in the relationship has all the hallmarks of a narcissistic person. You get into an argument with them about something, whatever it is, it's something, right? And maybe it's because you're right about something and they know it. Maybe you call them out on their gaslighting. Whatever it is, they respond with a silent treatment. After a day or two, the silent treatment starts to become really uncomfortable. So you apologize. You may even blame yourself for something you didn't do. But you give in and you capitulate. You tell them that their point of view is right, that yours is wrong, and they may continue to punish you for a minute. They will put in their back pocket your admission of being wrong so they can use it later against you when they need it. And then they will break out of giving you the silent treatment. You may have the initial relief of the silent treatment being over, and then you may end up feeling gross. You sort of gave up on yourself, blamed yourself, and gave them more juice and supply. And while the silent treatment part may be over, you're still left feeling icky and uncomfortable. Narcissistic folks, especially folks with vulnerable or what's sometimes known as covert narcissism, are really good at the silent treatment. They can go days, weeks, even months, and in a few cases, years. To them, being resolute about being right is more important than being flexible and finding the compromise and the almighty gray that characterizes all relationships. When the silent treatment is happening, they aren't uncomfortable. The silent treatment is about power and control. And ultimately, because more often than not, it gets the narcissistic person what they want, whether what they want is an apology or people just giving in to them to break the discomfort of the silent treatment, they are rewarded for it and they're going to do it again. The silent treatment is much more common with vulnerable narcissistic folks compared, like I said, to other forms of narcissism. Malignant narcissistic and even grandiose narcissistic folks are more likely to turn to sort of overt anger, not the passive-aggressive stuff. But for vulnerable narcissistic folks, the covert narcissistic folks, the silent treatment is a signature move. And it is an extremely successful manipulation because the silent treatment is experienced in a lot of uncomfortable ways by the people on the receiving side of it. When a person is the recipient, if you will, of the silent treatment, it can include feeling that you feel abandoned, feeling as though you're being punished, feeling as though you did something wrong, and subsequently feeling guilty. You may feel angry, you may feel helpless, you may even feel hopeless. And the fix to ending the silent treatment can feel simple. Just need to figure out a way to get them starting again and things will feel normal again. Now, the silent treatment is at its most lethal when it is used against children. And narcissistic parents do this all the time. Children are children. And in their fashion, they're actually quite smart. At least they're unfiltered. And they will often voice, for example, their disapproval at problematic behavior. They will make innocent, truth-telling observations that often are right on the mark. And they also are children. They'll have normal reactions and tantrums. Well, all of this is quite inconvenient for the narcissistic parent who will vacillate between trying to overpower and dominate the child and bend them to their will, but then simultaneously view the child as an equal when it is convenient for the narcissistic parent. For example, sharing their personal problems with the child, telling the child about marital issues, asking the child for opinions that a child just wouldn't know how to offer, asking the child to take on roles in the household that they are not mature or developmentally ready to take on. The child of a narcissistic parent is not viewed as a separate, subjective human being, but rather they're viewed as a source of supply, an extension of the parent, a punching bag, and in some cases as a trophy or as window dressing, so the narcissist can performatively act as though they are a good parent or family person. So because of this, when the vulnerable narcissistic parent, when they disapprove of anything a child does or just want to bring that child into line, they will use the silent treatment and just stop talking to the child. Now, while for us as adults, this is already upsetting and annoying enough, for a child, it's mildly terrifying. The child doesn't have options. They can't leave. And depending on the child's age, the child may still be deeply reliant on the parent for basic needs to be met. And sadly, most children of narcissistic parents learn at an early age in a sort of sloppy way to have to care for themselves, doing the best they can at times to pull together a meal or figure out school forms on their own, for example. I've actually worked with more than a handful of adult children of narcissistic parents who said they actually hoarded food, which they kept in their room or in other sort of secreted parts of the house, because when their parent was being petulant, the parent would not only give them the silent treatment, but do things like refuse to make dinner. And so whatever bits of food that these children were able to hoard and hide was sort of a safety mechanism for them. So at least they knew they would have something to eat, though crackers and cookies and things like that would not be nutritious. At least it was something. Now, what does the child then do in the midst of this fear and confusion around a parent who does a silent treatment and effectively sort of disappears? The child, more often than not, blames themselves, which is a way to stay in control, and frankly, is what the parent is blaming them, right? You're a bad kid, so I'm not going to talk to you. Or you're a selfish kid, or you're a greedy kid, so I'm not going to talk to you. As the child will cry and beg and plead. Some folks have told me they would leave poignant notes for their parents, apologizing and promising to never be a bad kid again, just to get the parent to interact with them again. And once the kid would just eat enough shit and apologize enough, then the parent would start speaking. And this is a process of shaping and sculpting the child into the obedient person that the parent demands. A source of supply that anticipates the parent's needs, never speaks back, and has no needs of their own. The silent treatment does tremendous harm to children, and the simultaneous sense of psychological abandonment that the child tracks back to something they themselves did to disappoint the parent. So the child then is willing themselves to be better. Well, you can see how that story is going to roll into adulthood. The silent treatment, in essence, indoctrinates the child to learn to apologize, basically for their very existence. And the same dynamic is witnessed in all adult narcissistic relationships. Sometimes just to keep the trains running on time, we apologize because we are trying to protect other people in the household. For example, children. So when a narcissistic spouse or partner gives you the silent treatment, you may think to yourself, I don't care if this fool ever speaks to me again. But the tension created by the silent treatment within a household may result in you feeling that you have to sort of succumb to doing whatever is needed to break the silent treatment simply for the well-being of others in the household. And the same thing could happen in a workplace with narcissistic colleagues or in a family system. I once worked in a workplace where there were some narcissistic-y feeling colleagues who did give me the silent treatment. And I would F with them by giving them a warm hello as they walked by. Hey! But they never said hello back. I was also being civil just to keep other colleagues comfortable in meetings. I left the job ultimately because frankly, folks, there is no way to thrive in a narcissistic workplace. I've never seen any other solution but to quit. The problem with the chronic apologizing to break the silent treatment is that we at some level start to feel complicit. we may internalize the sense that we are the problem. Language matters. So even if we apologize tactically, all of this apologizing sort of seeps in and it accumulates into a psychological toll for us. But more often than not, narcissistic and other toxic folks who use the silent treatment and get what they want, which is the apology, and then us taking the fall so they can maintain their sense of superiority and blamelessness. So you may be wondering, is there a solution to this? I mean, the one that isn't accessible to everyone is get the hell out of the relationship. But beyond that is the hard work of either tolerating the silent treatment or figuring out the workarounds. But make no mistake, those workarounds are taking a toll on you. Is it any wonder that folks who have been through narcissistic relationships get into the habit of apologizing all the time? So the silent treatment is one of those sort of absolutely lethal and painfully efficient manipulations in the narcissistic relationships that induce apologies all around and really, really kind of enable the narcissistic person to sort of keep getting their way, because in most cases, the silent treatment feels intolerable, and the enablers will often say, oh, come on, stop being so petty, just apologize to them, basically so we can keep the trains running on time. And all that does is it teaches the narcissistic person is that the silent treatment works like a charm every time, and they feel a sense of self-righteous permission that they're right, you're wrong, and so that they can forever throw these petulant tantrums. So good luck with that.